So I thought that I would start talking about um, my journey from pregnancy to birth and into kind of early babyhood or motherhood rather. Um, all the things that I've learned and experienced and the challenges I've faced and how I got through them, which I think people are talking more about it these days, but um, I think we could be more open about just how difficult it can be in moments and how industrialized the whole birthing and baby care kind of phase and process has become. So I decided to allow my pregnancy to go over my due date. I decided to wait for the baby to be ready, which when a woman goes into labor, it is following the woman's body as well as the baby's body, sending out hormones and signals to essentially get the labor process started. So I decided to not try and induce labor aside from doing things like walking and exercise and certain stretches and things that are recommended for trying to encourage labor to start. In any case, so I ended up being 12 days over my due date by the time my son was born, which in retrospect, I'm kind of two minds about letting it go on that long, because he ended up being a big baby. And if I had given birth a little bit closer to my due date, then maybe it wouldn't have been as difficult as it was. Not that it was a very difficult labor and birth, but in any case, I'll get to that. But on the other hand, I'm glad that I gave us both the opportunity to wait until we were both ready. So I don't think there's necessarily a right or a wrong answer, but there certainly are pros and cons. Whichever decision you make, if you get induced early, whether it's by going the full on Syntocin, hospitalization route, or more, let's call it natural methods like castor oil or having a stretch and sweep, which is where your midwife or your OBGYN manually starts to kind of open the cervix a little bit, which very often can start labor. So yeah, there are pros and cons to both, and I think that any woman facing that decision needs to educate herself on those pros and cons so that she can make an informed decision. And that has essentially been the motto and the best advice, I think, that I can impart on any woman who is pregnant or wanting to be pregnant and is preparing themselves and educating themselves. There's a lot of misinformation from sometimes from doctors and on the internet and from family members and friends, and it becomes our own responsibility to actually educate ourselves enough that we can separate the misinformation from things that are more relevant and more, let's call it, true. So yeah, I'd say that's probably the best and most important piece of advice I can give is take the time and make the effort to um, to actually look into um, the what's involved in the different stages and processes that are and that may be involved with birth and labor. So I was 12 days overdue, and well, actually, when labor started, it was late at night on the 11th day past my due date. Um, I woke up. It was about 11 o'clock, I think. I woke up with cramping. Although, you know what? Before I get there, for a week, maybe as long as 2 weeks or a week and a half, I'd been having what you call prodromal labor, which is basically early labor signs that stop and start. So, cramping, losing the mucus plug. Was it? I never really had the nesting thing, and I never really had cravings except for wanting to eat certain kinds of food, like I wanted butter on everything. But in any case, um, and so yeah, I was having these prodromal labor kind of symptoms for a while. So every day I woke up wondering if today is going to be the day because my body was showing these early labor signs and stopping and starting and stopping and starting, and it was a little bit frustrating. Towards the end, I was like, you know what, this baby needs to get out of me. In any case, eventually he did leave the premises, which was a relief. So anyway, I woke up at night with cramping, bad enough obviously to wake me up because it's what woke me up. And at first I just waited and timed the contractions to see if we were dealing with the real thing. When I saw that the contractions were close together and at least 30 seconds long, I think they were about 4 to 5 minutes apart at that point. So it was already, I suppose I jumped right into like proper active labor. After about an hour, so around midnight, I woke up my husband. I said to him he better call the midwife and go and wake my mother up. My mother was staying with us. She was there to help in those last days of pregnancy and in the first days of the baby arriving, which was a huge help. So he went to go and do those things while I got on my exercise ball or the birthing ball, and I was doing my hip circles and all of the things that they say you could do to help the baby engage better into the pelvis. And the midwife arrived there about an hour later. She had just finished 2 back-to-back births, so she hadn't slept in like 2 days and was really tired. So she came in, she saw that I was, yes, in labor, but still kind of relatively early labor, meaning that we weren't anyway seriously, at the point of the baby is about to come out. I was still talking and smiling. So she said, get some rest now while you can. She also went to go and have a sleep so that she would be actually better able to support. So we did that. We got into bed and I tried to sleep in between the contractions. And eventually, a few hours later, now I don't really remember the timing of things, and some things I remember out of order, or I remember that it happened, but I don't remember where exactly in the whole process it happened. So I don't remember how long I slept, for example. I don't remember what time it was that that the contractions got too intense for me to carry on laying in bed for. So anyway, I got out of bed and I went to kind of move around in the bedroom and the bathroom, and my husband was with me, and midwife gave the okay for me to get in the bath, so I got in the bath for a while. At one point, she offered to check how much I dilated to see where we were in the process, and I said yes, okay, let's check. And I was 8 centimeters dilated, which is, the goal is to get to 10, so it was already pretty well into active labor at that point, and right at about at what they call transition. So she said, okay, well, you carry on laboring, and if we can check your cervix again in a few hours, if nothing has changed by then, and see if we need to possibly break your waters. The reason for, at that point, for her suggestion of breaking my waters a few hours from them was so that labor didn't go on and on and on and on, and so that I didn't get so tired that by the time I needed to push, that I'd be too tired. So I labored for a while longer, and a few hours later she came back, and I was still 8 centimeters dilated. She suggested, okay, I'd say that we should break your waters now, and I agreed. So she did that, and that basically dilated me fully, immediately, almost, and I could at that point start pushing. So the feeling of pushing is, it's a really weird, I haven't experienced anything else in my body that I can compare this to. But as I consciously pushed, it's like my body took over and pushed as well. Like my uterus just clamped down and did its own thing. And I'm going to have to pause the story here and carry on another time. My son's waking up. So, well, check in for part 2.